A private international NGO has just been granted immunity in Kenya, meaning you can't sue them, you can't audit them, and even the government can't walk into their offices without permission. That organization is called the Global Centre on Adaptation, or simply GCA. It's based in Netherlands and recently launched in Nairobi, yet Kenya has now given it the kind of protection usually reserved for embassies and international bodies. We are talking about bodies such as the United Nations. Guys, they will be getting full legal privileges under the Privileges and Immunities Act, allowing it to operate above local law. Meanwhile, the Netherlands, GCA's own home country, is cutting off its funding, and yet Kenya is moving in the opposite direction, embracing Global Centre on Adaptations, not just as a partner, but as a protected power. Its CEO, Professor Patrick Vakuyeng, is not a stranger. He is also the Chancellor of the University of Nairobi, the same university that, according to Dutch media, received roughly 1.2 million euros in funding from Global Centre on Adaptation shortly before his appointment. And now, that same organization that is foreign registered, legally untouchable here in Kenya, and led by a man at the top of Kenya's oldest public university, will soon host Kenya's own Ministry of Environment within its new Nairobi headquarters. President Ruto calls it a breakthrough, saying Kenya will not pay a coin, but we will establish the BS. Before that, let's play Ruto's clip.
If climate action is an emergency, climate adaptation is more than an emergency. And therefore, the setting up of this office that is also going to provide space for our Ministry of Environment at no cost to the government of Kenya is a very welcome development.
All right, there we go. No cost at all. Did we not have a place where the Ministry of Environment was housed, or am I getting it wrong? Anyway, think about that for a moment. A foreign NGO protected from Kenyan law will be the landlord of a Kenyan government ministry, the same ministry that is responsible for setting and enforcing the country's environmental policy. And the president wants us to believe this is a win for Kenya. Anyways, by the time we are done today, I really want to walk you through a couple of things. How Kenya's top public university received funding from Global Centre on Adaptation before its CEO became the chancellor of that university. Why the Netherlands, Global Centre on Adaptation's own home country, is walking away. How Kenya quietly published a Gazette notice granting it diplomatic-style immunity, and why Global Centre on Adaptation will now host a Kenyan ministry on immunized grounds, and how all of this connects to a global system where Africans' land, air, and carbon are quietly being turned into commodities traded in the name of climate adaptation. Because once, guys, you strip away the slogans about resilience and sustainability, this is not just a climate story anymore. This is a power story about how easily foreign influence hides behind good intentions. Because in today's world, immunity is not just legal protection. It is the perfect disguise for an accountable control. Let's get deeper details on this. Kenya's parliament has officially approved something called the Privileges and Immunities Order 2025. Now, this is for the Global Centre for Adaptation. That's just the formal name for a government law, also listed as Legal Notice number 82 of 2025. In simple terms, this legal notice is the document that gives the Global Centre on Adaptation its special status in Kenya, allowing it to operate here with the same protections usually given to the big international organizations, like we said, the United Nations. It's not just a policy idea or a partnership. It is now Kenyan law, signed, sealed, and published in the official government gazette on May 2nd, 2025. First, they can't be sued or prosecuted for anything they do in their official capacity unless they themselves agree to be sued. Secondly, they will not be paying any taxes or duties on their official operations. Are we together? Thirdly, their offices and records are completely off limits. No police, even the general auditor cannot touch them. No government agency can just walk in or seize anything. Then their staff and senior officials are also protected, so long as what they are doing is considered official business. And finally, there is a very small clause here, almost easy to miss, that says these protections don't apply to Kenyan citizens or residents unless they work exclusively for the Global Centre on Adaptation. So put simply, Global Centre on Adaptation now operates in Kenya with a level of immunity that places it above ordinary accountability. They can sign deals. Let me repeat that. They can sign deals, move money, and run projects, all without the same oversight every other organization in this country faces. Now, stop and think about that. Why would Kenya give that kind of power to a foreign-run institution? And what exactly does this climate adaptation body do that is so sensitive, so untouchable, that it needs diplomatic-style protection? Now, the Global Centre on Adaptation is an international organization that says its mission is to help countries prepare for the effects of climate change, especially those already struggling with droughts, floods, and unpredictable weather. In simple terms, Global Centre on Adaptation acts as a solution broker. This is a bridge between governments, development banks, and private investors. It doesn't usually build dams or plant forests itself. Instead, because we already have those things, we have the forest, we have the land. So what this organization is here to do is design the blueprint, advise ministries and connect the financiers who make those projects happen. And here is what that looks like in practice. It will advise governments on how to plan and finance climate adaptation projects. Guys, I know climate change is such a... Not many people are interested in this, but I really want you to get these details, right? So from irrigation and flood control, to roads, energy, and early warning systems. Don't we have the Kenya Met for that? Don't we have the Met Department for that, all right? Then it mobilizes money for those projects by working with major lenders like the World Bank, the African Development Bank, and the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, helping them integrate climate resilience into their portfolios. Then it conducts research and policy studies, shaping national strategies on food security, land restoration, and water management. It promotes what it calls nature-based solutions, restoring mangroves, the forest, grasslands, so they protect communities and absorb carbon. And it runs capacity building programs, especially for youth and local leaders, under initiatives like the Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program. I saw Gladys Wanga in one of those. So in essence, Global Centre on Adaptation doesn't do the digging. All it does is write the rules. It helps decide what adaptation looks like, what qualifies for funding, and often who sits at the table when those billions in climate finance start moving. Doesn't it remind you why a lot of people also have issues with the Gates Foundation? Because they make the rules. The money is there, but they decide this is where we want our money used. And that's why Kenya's decision to give Global Centre on Adaptation legal immunity is such a big deal. Because this isn't just another NGO. It's an organization that shapes policy, finance, and land use all at once. And when such an institution becomes legally untouchable, it doesn't hold influence. It holds power without accountability. To understand what's really happening, we need to go back to where this story began, because it did not begin here in Nairobi. It began in Netherlands, Rotterdam, right? That is where the Global Centre on Adaptation was born. It was housed in this sleek floating office on the Maar River, a symbol of Dutch innovation, proudly described as the world's largest floating office. The Dutch government helped fund it. The city of Rotterdam hosted it, and Global Centre on Adaptation was celebrated as proof that Netherlands was leading the global fight against climate change. But by 2025, start taking your notes, that celebration had turned into a crisis. According to NOS, that is the Netherlands National Public Broadcaster, the Dutch government decided to end its financial support for Global Centre on Adaptation's Rotterdam base once the current funding cycle expires, that is in 2026. The Ministries of Infrastructure and Water Management and Foreign Affairs in Netherlands both confirmed that Global Centre on Adaptation subsidies will not be renewed, citing budget constraints. But Dutch media, including NOS, NL Times, and Dutch News, made it clear the issue went far deeper than money. Behind closed doors, officials were questioning Global Centre on Adaptation's governance, transparency, and political ties. That decision did not just come out of nowhere. It was the result of a long list of uneasy moments that had been building for months. Let's rewind a bit. January 2024. Kenya's President William Ruto appoints Professor Patrick, the CEO of Global Centre on Adaptation, as the Chancellor of the University of Nairobi, right? That is our own oldest and most prestigious public university. On paper, this sounds like a normal academic honor, but Dutch journalists quickly discovered something unusual. Please take your notes on this one. Global Centre on Adaptation had reportedly funded a major research contract worth 1.2 million euros for the University of Nairobi shortly before Patrick's appointment. That is around 140 million Kenya shillings. Do the maths, let me know if I'm right. That raised eyebrows because here was an international organization funding a university, and then, moments later, its CEO becomes the university's ceremonial head. Hey! You see the conflict of interest here. Anyways, Dutch officials quietly described it as a potential conflict of interest, even if we are not doing it here in Kenya. Netherlands is already calling it a conflict of interest. Patrick Vakoyeng dismissed the 1.2 million euros as utter nonsense, but his own spokesperson later confirmed that funding had indeed taken place, though they insisted it was signed before his appointment. I mean, what a coincidence. Anyway, fast forward a few months later, March of 2025, the Dutch King William Alexander and Queen Maxima traveled to Kenya for a state visit hosted by President Ruto. You remember the one where we were signing petitions for these guys not to come? Anyway, the visit was meant to celebrate climate partnerships, and Global Centre on Adaptations played a major role in organizing the climate agenda. But then, something unexpected happened. During the state banquet at State House, Nairobi, President Ruto did something very unheard of. He handed the microphone to Patrick Vakoyeng, the head of this NGO, and allowed him to give a speech in front of the king, the queen, and both governments. This was no one had this memo that this guy will be speaking. Anyway, Patrick Vakoyeng uses the moment to praise Ruto's leadership on climate action. Guys, this is where I need you to just come on the comment section and just tell me, what role exactly has Ruto played in climate action? The one where he gets to be praised in front of kings and queens. Vakoyeng's speech ran longer than the remarks from both heads of state. And according to NOS, that is the media in Netherlands, this left the Dutch delegation visibly uncomfortable. Because in diplomatic protocol, guests do not speak at a royal banquet, especially not a non-state actor representing an organization funded by the host country's government. That speech became a turning point. It was now clear to the Dutch that Global Centre on Adaptation had grown too politically aligned with Ruto's administration. Actually, before we go any further, I remember when Ruto was in Netherlands, I think it's 2023. Guys, look at this clip. Who is receiving him there? So these guys are buddies. Patrick and Ruto, these guys are actually buddies, bad boys too, Will and Martin Lawrence, something like that. These guys are buddies, for real. Anyway, we are going to take a look at the fallout after that speech. By mid-2025, the Dutch government had made up its mind. The Ministries of Infrastructure and Water and Foreign Affairs in Netherlands confirmed to the press that Global Centre on Adaptation subsidies would end after 2026. And as those plans became public, remember guys, before plans become public, a lot of things are happening under, we might not always get to hear them, but before these plans become public, a lot of tension is definitely brewing. And as those plans became public, Global Centre on Adaptation reacted strongly. The organization warned that if the Netherlands pulled its funding, it would shut down its Rotterdam office entirely and relocate to Nairobi. It even brought in Ban Ki-moon, Global Centre on Adaptation's honorary chair, and former UN Secretary General to plead its case. You see which kind of people these guys are pulling. Anyway, Ban Ki-moon personally appealed to Dutch officials, saying it would be better for Global Centre on Adaptation to stay in the Netherlands. But his efforts did not change anything. Meanwhile, something else was happening quietly in Kenya. On 2nd May 2025, just weeks before the Dutch decision became public, Kenya gazetted Legal Notice number 82 of 2025, officially granting Global Centre on Adaptation legal privileges and immunities under the Privileges and Immunities Act. I know, my dear fellow Kenyans, none of us pay attention to these gazette notices, but it was there. It was there. Only a few people tweeted it. And I'm going to give credit to a few people at the end of today's conversation, because as I was doing research for this guy was actually tweeting about this every single day, but people are not paying attention. Anyway, that single government order gave Global Centre on Adaptation everything it needed to operate above local law. See, we've spoken about them: legal protection, tax exemptions, inviolable premises, and protection from lawsuits or prosecution for official acts. It even shielded foreign staff, except for the Kenyan citizens, unless they worked exclusively for this NGO. Then, only 2 months later after the Gazette notice, on 8th July 2025, President Ruto and Patrick Vakuyeng stood side by side at the groundbreaking ceremony for Global Centre on Adaptation's new African headquarters in Nairobi. Patrick even insisted, by the way, this was Ruto's idea. When he visited, this was Ruto's idea. Let us actually have the headquarters here in Nairobi. Let me play you that part, guys.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your vision. Indeed, sir, if I may disclose, it was you who called for this day when you visited our largest floating office in the world in Rotterdam. And it was and that is not much appreciated inside this country. What the president is doing outside this country for the people of Kenya.
Anyways, the event was broadcasted widely. Global Centre on Adaptation described Kenya as its co-host nation and declared it would now operate from dual headquarters, one in Netherlands, one in Nairobi. But by that point, everyone knew what was really happening. The Dutch were walking away and Kenya was rolling out the red carpet for this organization. Let's look at the timeline again because it tells the whole story. Late 2023, Global Centre on Adaptation gives the University of Nairobi a funded research contract worth 1.2 million euros. January 2024, Ruto appoints Global Centre on Adaptation CEO Patrick Vakuyeng as University of Nairobi Chancellor. March 2025, Vakuyeng gives his unplanned speech at the Royal State Banquet in Nairobi, breaking diplomatic protocol. May 2025, Kenya Gazette's legal notice number 82 giving Global Centre on Adaptation's full diplomatic style immunity. July 2025, Global Centre on Adaptation and Ruto break ground on the Nairobi headquarters. Then September 2025, the Netherlands formally announced it's cutting Global Centre on Adaptation's funding. In less than 2 years, this whole thing has happened. This whole transformation is happening in front of us in just 2 years. Man, this was so fast. You are telling me a Dutch-funded institution that once operated under strict oversight moved from scrutiny to safety, from a country questioning its governance to one granting it immunity in just 2 years. And that's what makes this story so important. Because when an organization loses trust at home, that they even have to send Ban Ki-moon, they lose trust in their own home. But then they come and gain protection here in Kenya. It raises one unavoidable question. Is this about saving the planet or saving themselves from accountability? Also, why Kenya? Then you take a look at this Gazette notice that was very quiet, almost invisible. There were no headlines, no public debate, just a few lines of law on a Friday, Gazette. On May 2nd, let's go back to that. Legal notice number 82 of 2025, where we are talking about the privileges and immunities for the Global Centre on Adaptation. Order 220-2025 took effect. Did you guys see any press conference? Did you guys see any ministries doing road shows? All we saw were signatures, signatures. Well, the Netherlands is busy stepping back. Kenya was writing Global Centre on Adaptation into law, giving it privileges comparable to those extended to people like the UN. Then you go inside our government, the machinery moved very fast. The notice went to Parliament's Departmental Committee on Environment, Forestry and Mining within months. The committee endorsed it in full, said it's legally sound, constitutional, and good for Kenya. They said it would help attract climate finance and cement Kenya's role as an adaptation hub. They also recorded who they had spoken to. But look closely at the people they spoke to: Foreign Affairs, National Treasury, Environment, KRA, Immigration, the Attorney General's Office. That is intra-government consultation, not public participation. If you are watching this and someone actually came to you and said, we need to have a public participation on whether we need to grant Global Centre on Adaptation immunity, let me know. There was no open call for memoranda, nothing. There was nothing. No advert inviting citizens or civil society to submit views, zero. No committee hearing where communities could question what immunity, from our courts and audits really mean. Guys, if any public input happened, it left no visible trail. And I know maybe after watching this, they will go and fake a public hearing or a public participation. No. Then, just the other day, this same October, the approval motion was on the order paper. The order paper, that is press and parliamentary trackers, where they recorded that MPs adopted the committee's recommendation. And with that, because the MPs have adopted, this is okay, we are good. We are giving it our signature of approval. And with that, GCA stopped being just a partner. It became a protected power, able to shape policy, broker billion shillings deals, and operate behind legal shields that most Kenyan institutions will never see. Then again, someone will ask, Lynn, kwani there is no host country agreement? Because Kenya needed to sign one with the Global Centre on Adaptation. Yes, they did. They signed one. Parliament's own report confirms it, and the Kenya Gazette put it into force via Legal Notice 82 of 2025, right? The host country agreement full text is not publicly available, but the legal order clearly grants immunities, tax exemptions, and all this to this NGO. The committee says the deal was developed with the Ministry of Environment and other agencies, and lists planned areas of collaboration. But what we still can't see are the actual clauses. Who leads decisions? How oversight and audits will work? What happens if Kenya needs to challenge or exit parts of the agreement? We can't see. Guys, go and search for this host country agreement between Kenya and the Global Centre on Adaptation that has the clauses, like a baby, the one that is telling you this is what will happen and this is how Kenya can exit. Maybe after they watch this, you'll suddenly now get to see it, because a lot of things don't make sense here. And that's exactly why Kenyans are beginning to scrutinize this immunity deal, not out of ignorance, but out of history. Because every time foreign institutions have arrived with beautiful words and legal protections, the outcome has looked painfully familiar. Guys, we have to question this immunity, and it breaks my heart that I don't see the same people who are making noise about the Gates immunity deal. Not that I would advocate for that deal. You all know where my stand is, especially when it comes to Bill Gates and his foundations, etc., etc. But no one is speaking. And this thing is already now law. But no one, Kenya Law Society, excuse me, where are you? Okay, are we the dumb ones? Are we the ones who are missing something? Because a lot of things go wrong when we give immunity, and even a local mwananchi does not understand what this immunity stands for. Africa knows this, and this is why people scrutinize these deals now. Kitambo, no one would even question, immunity, okay, but now you have an awakening happening that demands we scrutinize such things, because a lot of things have happened in Africa. Take Tanzania, for example. In the name of green conservation, thousands of Maasai families in Ngorongoro and Loliodo were forcibly removed from their ancestral lands. Their homes burned, their livestock scattered. The government said it was about protecting wildlife and fighting climate change. But behind the fences stood the interests of foreign safari companies and green investors trading carbon credits on land that once belonged to the people. That is the new face of displacement. And this time they are not coming with guns, but with global policy and this whole climate change BS. Cross over here in Kenya, and you'll see the same pattern unfolding. It is just dressed in a different language. In the Mau forest, the Ogiek, one of Kenya's oldest forest communities, have fought for decades just to live on the land their ancestors protected. They were told their presence damaged the forest, right? They were told to leave for the sake of carbon sinks and restoration. We want to restore the Mau forest. Yet, when they left, instead of the forest being restored, or the forest healing, it was opened up to logging, plantations, and carbon offset projects that now generate profits for others, not the Mau community. The African Court on Human and People's Rights ruled in 2017 that the Ogiek have a right to their land. But even now, reports of harassment and restricted access continue. That is what green injustice looks like. When people who live with nature are punished in the name of saving it. And then there's northern Kenya. Vast rangelands stretching through Isiolo, Marsabit, Samburu, and Laikipia. Here, the story takes on another layer. Over the years, large tracts of community land have been converted into wildlife conservancies and carbon projects, often under the banner of international NGOs and donors. The Northern Rangelands Trust, or NRT, alone manages or oversees millions of acres of land, our land. And it receives funding from major Western partners, but court filings tell a more complicated story. In Isiolo High Court, petition E008 of 2021, Osman versus NRT, community representatives accused the trust of taking communal land without proper consent, violating the Community Land Act and creating conservancies through opaque processes. The National Land Commission later confirmed irregularities in how some of these conservancies were formed. And in a separate case, Environment and Land Court Petition number 7 of 2018, judges went as far as declaring one conservancy's land transfer unlawful and invalid, ruling that communal land cannot be converted without community approval. All of this exposes a truth most reports never say out loud, that climate projects can easily become the new frontier of land control. Instead of settlers, we now have investors. Instead of missionaries, what do we have? We have NGOs that are getting immunities. And instead of rifles, we have research grants, carbon credits, and diplomatic immunity. When you strip away the polite language, conservation resilience, carbon sequestration, what you find is the same old power dynamic, just repackaged in green. The people will stay poor, the land becomes collateral, and the profits flow north. And here is where it gets even more complicated and dangerous, because the plan isn't just for Global Centre on Adaptation to work with Kenya's Ministry of Environment. You remember what we said? Global Centre on Adaptation is going to host the ministry. Hey, Ruto wanted us to believe that, this sounds harmless and it's going to save Kenya some money, just two climate partners sharing office space where Kenya does not need to pay. But now, when you look closer, this absolutely makes no sense, and here is why. First, Global Centre on Adaptation is not a government agency. It is not created by a treaty like the United Nations or the African Union. So, when a Kenyan government ministry moves into a building owned or controlled by Global Centre on Adaptation, it completely flips the script. Because instead of Kenya hosting now this organization, it is now this NGO hosting Kenya. That means a foreign organization protected by immunity will be the landlord of a Kenyan ministry, this time for free, no rent. And remember what that immunity means? You remember what we said the immunity means? Kenyan authorities cannot just walk into Global Centre on Adaptation premises, not for an audit, not for an investigation, not even for routine oversight, unless GCA gives permission. So, assuming the ministry is on the second floor and they hear something is happening on the fourth floor, where GCA is located, they can't just press lift number 4 and just walk in and say, hey, we are here, let us check some things out. No. Huh? Hi, guys. If the Ministry of Environment is inside that building, parts of our own government will technically be operating in a space that Kenyan law cannot freely touch. You are telling me that is cooperation? That is BS. Then there's the issue of conflict of interest. The Ministry of Environment is supposed to do what? Set and regulate policy. We are talking about the laws, the standards, and rules that govern how climate and land projects work. But then, a Global Centre on Adaptation's job is to advise, fund, and help design those same projects. Hey, if both are sitting under one roof, who is really influencing who? You can't regulate the same organization that houses you. It's like letting a player sit on the referee's bench, sit here. We are buddies like that. And imagine what happens when something goes wrong. Say a dispute over land or money from a carbon deal that never reaches a community. I saw Global Centre on Adaptation in Muranga, talking to some residents here and there. say some of those residents are not okay, and they decide, no, we want to go to the Ministry of Environment and report something. Now, if the ministry and the Global Centre on Adaptation share the same office, how do you separate responsibility? After you're going to report for what? No matter what you say or report, these guys have immunity. The Global Centre on Adaptation can claim immunity for official acts, but the ministry can't. So who takes the blame? You know, you can already see the mess this is going to create. Lastly, the message this sends to the entire world is troubling. Kenya already hosts legitimate international bodies. I don't know if they're legitimate anymore, but UNEP and UN Habitat. And that's fine, because those are treaty-based organizations created by nations. But Global Centre on Adaptation isn't that. It's a foreign-funded NGO. So when our government decides to move a ministry into its building, it tells the world that Kenya's climate policy is being managed from the outside. This is not partnership anymore. This is actually outsourcing. And maybe that's what we need to do, right? I think so. Because we are having the Global Centre on Adaptation coming to do what we should actually be doing. I mean, you are telling me, Kenya here, look at our country, floods imetushinda, cleaning our own streets imetushinda. I was being reminded this morning, go and witness the damage that was caused by the recent rain. Look at how dirty Nairobi is, the roads, etc. Maybe actually, we need to actually outsource. Me thinks we shouldn't let organizations such as the Met Department run on taxpayers' money. We actually need to let these people do the work for us. Because you are telling me dams have defeated us as a country. We cannot come with ways of irrigating our own lands. We cannot even make our own carbon credits deals. That we can't do as a country. We actually need to outsource. Maybe they need to actually do away with the whole Ministry of Environment and let these guys do the work. Because what me sees here is a ministry that is so lazy to do what they are supposed to be doing. And now they've brought in a body that is telling them, I could do this for you. So you eat taxpayers' money. Let me do this. Just give me immunity. Let me not pay taxes. Let me do the work for you. Maybe that is the agreement that is here. And thus we are just busy making noise here. So the Ministry of Environment needs to tell us, so what are you doing exactly? Why are you there? Why do you exist? Because this organization is actually coming to do what you're supposed to be doing. You can't tell me now we need a whole NGO to come and tell us, I think in the month of July there's going to be floods in Kenya. So let's make the necessary preparation. Guys, I know on paper this looks like, it's efficiency. This is us gaining. But in reality, it means our own environmental ministry could end up working inside a space that Kenyan government itself cannot legally inspect. And that raises a very simple but powerful question. If our ministry is sitting inside an organization protected from our own laws, who is really in charge of Kenya's climate policy? See, it's them. And then someone will say, but Lynn, climate change is a conversation we must have. Absolutely. Guys, we must have this conversation. I'm for it. Because no one is doubting the science. I mean, we have droughts and we have the floods. We have all this. But let's have the facts as well. Africa, not just Kenya, Africa contributes less than 4% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Yet, we pay the highest price for a crisis we did not create. We are talking about droughts that wipe out entire harvests, floods, right? We are living on the front lines of a problem caused by other people. Europe industrialized on coal. America built its wealth on what? Tell me. China powers its factories on carbon. But it's Africa, the least polluting continent, that is now being told to bear the cost of fixing climate change. I heard Ruto saying, it's now time for the blame game to be over, you know. Let's not blame the North for what they've done. We will blame them. Excuse you. Let us have industries that are also running. Let us actually take a fair share on polluting the whole environment. Please, let Kenya also pollute this environment to the maximum so that now we can actually stop the blame game. You are telling a continent that does 4% of polluting to stop the blame game. Even the math is not mathing. We are talking 4:96. How do you tell people to play fair with such a difference? Our farmers are losing crops, while billion-dollar companies in the global north buy carbon credits from African land to keep polluting at home. And then, when you ask the community, how much of carbon credit money did you get? Hey, man, do I need to remind you of that story we went to do where the community did not even know what carbon credits are, but they were being told to give off their land for 250 shillings an acre a year, so carbon credit can be collected? Guys, we are looking at a new kind of colonization dressed in green. This whole climate thing is the new way of people colonizing us. Climate responsibility must match climate impact. We can't keep paying for the sins of others while still begging for the right to develop our own economies. No. Actually, go pollute. Let us also know we are polluting. Because that's what this moment truly represents. The return of colonialism. Only this time, it's climate change, climate change, climate change. You know, back then, these people came for our gold, our land, and our people. Today, they are coming for the carbon, for the forests, and your consent. They'll speak the language of sustainability and partnership, but the power still flows which way? One way. We are talking about power flowing from African soil to foreign accounts. They will write the contracts, they will own the data, they define the rules, and they call it saving the planet. Who are you fooling? How do you save a planet? Well, enslaving the very people who protect it. This is not just climate adaptation, this is climate control. And until Africa builds its own path, our green future will keep being written in someone else's ink. Immunity deals will be given. Yani, I'm telling you that, wait. By the way, stop thinking that now we are going to have another season where, you know, the British come and they decide we are going to be under them, or France comes and forces assimilation to some of our countries. Nada. Africa has the land. Africa actually has the highest percentage of uncultivated land. And you guys, you think this is a whole joke. Me, you keep saying this president is at the head of climate change. Show me one. Show me one example, and I promise you I'll be done with these conversations, because let's not stop fooling each other here. If climate change, by the way, now is the new it. If you want to hide a few things here and there, it's the new it. And if the Global Centre on Adaptation feels it's here legally, and that whatever they are going to do is going to change this country, come sit on this table and tell us exactly what is this that you are going to do. These are the people who want to collaborate. I heard Patrick Vakuyeng, this guy, saying he's even inviting people like Bill Gates or the Gates Foundation, one of those, I could be wrong, but it's either Gates or Bill Gates, but along those lines, to come and collaborate. These are the same people we are telling you we do not want them in our continent anymore, but you are telling us these are the people you still want to collaborate with. I dare the Vice Chancellor of the University of Nairobi, Professor Patrick, come sit on this table and tell us exactly why you believe that an NGO you lead deserves diplomatic style immunity. I dare you. Because if you know you are doing everything legally, if you know you are actually here to save the nation. Why do you need immunity? Don't you think if someone is actually here doing the right thing, they would actually welcome scrutinization? Don't you think someone would want to be audited? Don't you think this conversation would actually be understood by people? Don't you think public participation on this immunity deal should actually have happened? Because you are saying you actually wish the best for Kenya. So come sit on this table and tell us how this NGO is going to transform Kenya. What are you hiding? What is this that can't be audited? What is this that you're scared of? Climate change, guys, is not just a word. This is a conversation that involves billions and billions and billions of dollars. It involves our land. It involves our people. It involves actually our air. Yeah, we own this air. It's Kenyan air. Actually, Kenyan. Guys, I'm over this thing. If they actually think whatever they are doing is okay, so come sit on this table and tell us. Why do you need immunity then? You know, the law should actually be able to come and say, hey, we saw this. Okay. Hey, but where even access to your office? Yani that place, you try march in there, you'll see what will happen to you. That is what immunity means. Even you can't just walk with your anger and enter there and say, I'm a Kenyan, I need to know what this organization is doing in my country. Excuse you? No, you can't. So we need to understand, why does an NGO that deals with climate things need immunity? Why do you need immunity? Kwani, what is this that you are going to do in this land that you can't even be prosecuted for? What is it? What is it, guys? What is it? What is it they're about to do that cannot be executed, cannot be audited? Anyways, I want to give a few people their flowers, because as I was researching this, it's a conversation that we all had on X during the weekend. And I want to give these people their flowers because they've been they make sure we are up to date. We are talking about MOE Twitter account. That is Money Academy KE. Guys, follow that account for all the updates. I'll be honest, had they not tweeted about this, even me myself, I was just there as dumb as I can be, you know? So MOE, we appreciate you tweeting and just being on top of all this and giving us. By the way, if you want to know whatever is happening to Kenya, just follow that account. Just follow that account. Also, I want to give flowers to someone by the name Shoba Gatimu. Shoba Gatimu is on X as well. I saw he tweeted a lot when it came to this Global Centre on Adaptation. So we really do appreciate such people who are constantly updating the public. And then I also want to give flowers to this incredible person here by the name Sholad, doing an incredible job in also updating people. And I see she's gone full throttle on SHA or SHIF, and she's here telling you guys, open your eyes. So follow that account as well if you can. I follow this account and it's doing an incredible job updating us on what is happening. So those are the people I really want to give credit to for today's conversation. Yeah, even me myself, I was shocked actually researching this whole thing, because I'm like 1 + 1 ain't 2. And if you guys think I'm lying, Ruto, come sit on this side, Patrick, sit on this side, let us have a conversation. I doubt you would, because why? See, it's already low. Well, guys, let me know what your thoughts are on the comment section. I can't lie that these conversations make me happy. Every time we are trying to uncover something that we know doesn't make sense, makes me happy. Makes me happy. So let me know what your thoughts are on the comment section. That's on that. I also want to take this moment to appreciate everyone that continues supporting our platform. I saw we got 1.41 million subscribers. I appreciate that. Thank you for the comments, the sharing. Please share this video with your loved ones and also like it. It means a lot. and also to the people who are contributing towards our work financially. As we don't have immunity, guys. We don't have immunity. We pay taxes, everything. We don't have immunity. So thank you for contributing towards independent journalism. You can do that through our MPESA number, or our PayBill account, or even our PayPal. We appreciate you guys. This is work that, you know, this is a collaboration of LNN and the LNN audience. So we appreciate you for contributing. And even if you're not able to, and you notice maybe you got to the end of this episode and you forgot to subscribe, please subscribe. Hata sauti imepotea, guys. Next, I know a lot of you wanted me to come here and talk about Bill Gates. Not today. I ain't feeling him that way. Not today, guys. But I promise I will, okay? All right, bye.